Permit me to highlight some inefficiencies we have identified in the governance of our country. First, government has failed to furnish Parliament with program documents for the flagship programs it has so far launched. It will be recalled that since the swearing-in, Parliament has approved billions of Ghana cedis for various ministries, ostensibly to execute programs. Mr. President has gone ahead to launch these programs at various events across the country. Sadly, to date, none of the programs has been presented to Parliament to enable us properly commence the task of oversight. The 24-hour economy program, the 1 million coders program, the Agri for Economic Transformation program, the program to export labor as announced by the President, and the National Apprenticeship program, just to mention a few, have all not seen parliamentary scrutiny. Meanwhile, these programs are supposed to be executed with funds approved by Parliament. So the reason why Parliament is being kept in the dark can better be explained by the executive. But we will not relent in our demand on government to make these flagship programs available for us to scrutinize and to ensure that they are being implemented transparently, fairly, and with the necessary parameters required of government for it to benefit the people of Ghana. We cannot say that there is oversight when the basic program documents are not laid before Parliament. It is therefore imperative that government shows commitment and avails this document to Parliament for proper oversight to commence. So, the Feed Ghana program, April 2025, according to them, it is aimed at modernizing farming to create jobs, cut food inflation, and build agro-industry. Nothing has been seen. The Big Push Infrastructure Program, September 16, 2025, according to them, a $10 billion plan aimed at ensuring that there is roads and then there's national connectivity. Good idea, commendable, but no action. We haven't seen the document. And then their so-called all-important 24-hour economic program. In Mr. President's State of the Nation address, he shifted the goalposts. He said the finance minister, in presenting the 2025 budget, will highlight the 24-hour economic program. When the finance minister came, nothing was said about it. And then we hear in the media that there's a launch of the 24-hour economy. We insist that as the people's representatives, this is the place for scrutiny of the so-called 24-hour economy. Then their Ejumawura program, they also launched it April 28, 2025. The aim to create youth entrepreneurship support targeting at least 10,000 new youth-led firms each year. How are they going to go about this? What are the benchmarks? We don't know. Parliament, again, is in the dark. The National Apprenticeship Program is also one thing they launched July 29, 2025, starting with 10,000 apprentices and scaling to 100,000 in 2026. Again, Parliament has been kept in the dark. Not even the Committee on Youth and Sports has been updated on this. There's nothing. There is no ministerial update of this program on the House floor. Of course, getting to the dispatch box to put out these policy document is their bona fide. They have not done it. So one wonders whether it is just the mere media rhetoric or there is any serious document. We're yet to see. The 1 million coders program, May 2025, they say they aim to train 1 million youth in AI, cybersecurity, data science, cloud, and more. And they are going to establish 50 digital hubs. Again, way back in May, Parliament was in session at the time, but we have not seen any action. We don't know when the minister would bring this. We can forgive them on the labor export initiative. That was done when Parliament was on break. So again, we pray that this labor export initiative will find space in Parliament. Now, on the governance front, this is what we've observed as minority. Yesterday, we had the majority leader. He dealt with some figures, but he didn't deal with them holistically. Our job is to look at it holistically. So this is what the data says, holistically. Recent data from Global Info Analytics comparing the July and September 2025 surveys shows a clear dip, emphasis, a clear dip in public confidence in governance direction and performance. So in July 2025, the records had it that 71% of Ghanaians believed in the country heading towards a right direction, as the majority leader said. But by September, that optimism had fallen to 66%. So a 5% decline. Similarly, the share of those who felt the country was moving in the wrong direction rose from 20% to 23%, indicating growing unease about the country's policy trajectory. So whereas the majority leader focused on the July figures and perhaps did not want to delve into the September figures, we, the minority, have looked at it holistically, done a comprehensive, outlook. July and September. So you don't go to July and forget about the present. And then the Mr. President job approval rating, yes, he was right, it was 73%, but that was in July. As we speak, it has dipped. The disapproval rating has climbed to 22%. So we are looking at a 6% drop, which is huge, within just 3 months. When Ghanaians were asked about government performance, the percentage of respondents who described it as very good or good had declined from 61% in July to 54% in September, while those who viewed it as poor or very poor increased from 10% to 16%. The consistent down within just 2 to 3 months shows that Ghanaians are beginning to lose confidence in the government's handling of national affairs. The optimism that greeted the administration's early months is fading, replaced by growing skepticism about its ability to deliver on its promises. And these are the issues. One, the COVID-19 levy. They pledged that COVID-19 health recovery levy in its next budget yet the tax remains in force pending passage of a VAT amendment. Who does that? Who does that? They spoke about it in opposition. You come into government and you're failing to do that. And let's not forget, when they said the e-levy was not good and they were scrapping the e-levy, they introduced a D-levy, the Dumsor levy. They tried to suspend it, claiming that they were going to consult civil society. But they have since implemented it. And in fact, they have increased utility tariffs twice this year alone, in excess of 5%, 14%, 14%. So you say you are taking e-levy out of the economy because it was a nuisance tax. But in its place, you have burdened Ghanaians with utility tariffs, especially electricity, going as much as 14%. So it clearly reflects what Ghanaians are seeing. Is it a matrical agenda or, however you may want to describe it. But the reality is that Ghanaians are losing confidence in the government. Then the road contractors arrears. They are dealing with only 4 billion out of the planned 13 billion. what is happening? They promised that they were going to pay 13 billion. That was contained in the media review. But they are only paid 4 billion. Many of the roads that contractors were on, they've abandoned the site. So we ask, when are they going to deal with it? Then let us deal with the cost of living pressures. Whereas they would say that inflation has eased, we would want to look at the realities on the market. The recent SHS students who are going, parents are complaining because they have to buy everything. Everything. So it really negates the import of the free SHS. And even how students were placed. If somebody is in Winneba, and then you place the person in Koforidua, or the person is going to Boko, from Winneba to Boko, what is the gain? There's no value in free SHS. So the free SHS placement system that has crashed must be looked at, because it was not the case in the past, and we challenge them. The placement now is so burdensome, where parents complain to the media. It's not the minority that is saying so. Parents have had to complain about how their children were placed. So crucially, we cannot say that the inflation has helped to stabilize prices. No, that is not the case. And then if you monitor the opportunity for jobs, we really getting nothing. We have not seen any serious job creation effort. For the private sector, for instance, they came to cancel the 1D, 1F. They say they don't need a 1D, 1F. But the 1D, 1F was a major boost for the private sector. We, MPP, are center-right ideologists. We believe in the private sector. The private market creates opportunity for the industry to grow so that they can employ more. They are social democrat, center-left. We don't know what they intend to plan. But we cannot say that they have shown seriousness in terms of job creation for the private sector. That is why the Ghana Statistical Service report that youth unemployment is averaging 32% for the age bracket 15 to 24%. High joblessness amidst rising living costs reflect a shortfall in translating the macroeconomic gains to household welfare. Now let's come to the health sector. Health sector workers have been complaining. We know that over 200 junior doctors who are worked for 10 months without salaries and more than 800 who qualify as medical doctors still await posting. In October, we know that Junior Doctors Association threatened a nationwide strike, withdrawing outpatient and emergency services to protest these delays. Similarly, we know the nurses and midwives have also protested 8 to 10 months of salary arrest, forcing management promises by revealing poor workforce financing. Again, this cannot be said that a reset government that is making things anew, is doing to help revamp the economy. If you forget about critical sectors of the economy, your frontline workers, definitely it demonstrates some lack of priority on your part as a government. Education, the workforce there. Many of our qualified teachers complain that the sector has not been able to place them, or even those who were placed have not been paid. The unresolved service conditions has also led to labor unrest. Newly posted teachers have gone 8 months plus without salaries. We have also not seen any infrastructure improvement, any facelift. Government has not, since January, they brought a budget. The sweetness of the pudding is in the eating. From day one, we expect them to come prepared. We have not seen any effort in terms of data regarding infrastructure facelift, dormitory, classroom construction, under GET Fund. There is no document before Parliament telling us what GET Fund is doing. So far, nothing. If there is any such thing, we challenge them. We are ready for them. So we would stay here for now, and then I'm sure after the majority leader has made known his remarks, we will deal with the other sectors as and when your questions come up. Thank you so much indeed, and God bless you for your attention.
Before we take the address of the leader of government business, let me acknowledge the deputy minority leader and honorable member for Asuka constituency, Madam Patricia Appiagyei. And for the records, the second deputy minority whip and MP for Wijagbari is Honorable Jerry Ahmed Shaibu. Over to you, leader.
Good morning to you all. Let me welcome all of you back to this meeting of Parliament. I know it has been a long one. The recess has been long. And I believe you missed this house for a while. The opportunity to meet colleagues, fraternize with parliamentarians, get information from the proceedings of the House, and feed your media houses with content has been lacking for a couple of months now. We're back and ready to start work, and you being the platform on which the work that we do gets conveyed to the Ghanaian populace and Ghanaians abroad and international community as a whole. We need to welcome each other back and plan together how we intend to work during this meeting of Parliament, and also to share with you briefly what might be the agenda of the House going forward. So you're welcome, and I look forward to us having a very engaging meeting. As indicated in the speech of the clerk, our expectation of you is that you will convey accurately exactly what is happening in the House to the population. And I think you should go beyond that. When I say you should go beyond that, as a political platform, we have a penchant for continuously misrepresenting facts in a way just to portray what serves our political interests. I remember during the electioneering campaign in the US, I follow their politics quite a lot. I'm always watching them on CNN. There was so much misrepresentation of what was happening, to a point where CNN had to employ somebody for doing a fact check. And I noticed that either Joy FM or City FM, was Joy FM, also adopted that strategy. So I urge you, given the level of dishonesty and misrepresentation that sometimes I see in our politics, I expect you not just to convey what has been said, but also to build your own capacity to do fact-checking, so that when you are conveying, you can also correct the facts. That is what I hope to see during this meeting of Parliament. as a democracy, we must keep improving on our performance. As the fourth arm of government, the media must also improve its performance. What is its main task? Its main task is to convey accurate information to the populace. And so doing fact-checking is so critical. So when the minority leader speaks, by the time he finishes, when you are reporting, you should be correcting the inaccuracies in what he has said. Okay? So for instance, when he says that no policy document has come to Parliament, you are supposed to report that that is not accurate, because everything that he said was captured in the economic policy document that the finance minister presented to Parliament. And on the basis of the economic policy document and the various sectoral policies that they were introducing, he then presented an estimate of how much money is needed to implement those policies. And he had, at that time, 88 members in the chamber, and they debated the economic policy document sector by sector. Then they are members of the various committees, and all those committees took the sector by sector policy documents, analyzed them at committee retreats, invited all the agencies, and the agencies appeared before them and explained each and every one of those policy measures. A lot of these policy measures were already captured in our national campaign manifesto, if you recall. And you journalists quizzed us, we explained and explained those policy measures in the national campaign that took place in December 2024. Then our first budget came, and in the budget policy document, we captured the same policies. And then we budgeted for it. We brought it to this house. His members had the opportunity to scrutinize the policy document, debated it, and we all approved the policy documents in the chamber. Then the figures, the estimates for implementing those policies were brought to us. We debated the estimates again and approved them. So I'm surprised that this morning he will come and say that no policy document on any of those programs have been brought to Parliament. So fact check one, what you have said is not true. Then let me also indicate that I'll be surprised that as a former majority leader and leader of government business, you will say that the ministers have failed to come and tell us anything about those programs and policies. Because the tools for getting them to come and brief you on the policies are in your hands. If you have forgotten what the NDC promised in its manifesto, and if you have forgotten what is in the economic policy that you yourself approved, and you want to be reminded, you can ask a minister a question. So the tool of asking questions is for you to bring ministers to the floor of the House to brief you. Because you cannot also say that as a politician, as an opposition, it is only when facts are stated in the House that you take them as an indication of government policy or program. You admit that each and every one of those policies and programs have been launched. At the launch events, the policies are described, the programs are described, you journalists cover the events, and you broadcast it. And so I will be surprised if you say that the ministers have not come to Parliament to come and brief you, so you don't know what is happening. You should be reading newspapers. You should be reading the internet. You should be reading the news portals of the various media houses that are covering those events. They are all platforms for monitoring policy and policy implementation. The info analytics that you have cited here, did he come to brief you in Parliament? The man didn't come to brief you in Parliament. But you've gone to dig it out, you've gotten that information, and you are here relying heavily on that information. So how come that you don't want to rely on the information of all the media houses who covered Ejumawura, who covered all these other, programs, the Big Push, the Coders program, the apprenticeship training program, all these were launched. They were covered extensively by media houses. They were reported. So if you can sift through media reports to see the reports of Info Analytics, sift through the same media reports, and you'll find all the reports on all these programs that were launched. Let me also indicate that we are not claiming that in less than 360 days, every single mess that we inherited will be corrected. We're not saying that. If nurses who have been trained have not yet been placed, it doesn't take 360 days to place all nurses that have been trained. It doesn't take 360 days to place all teachers that have been trained, because you know that the structure of the economy was devastated by the level of mismanagement that we saw, which informed the elections. Ghanaians themselves saw it. That's the basis for the vote and the margin of victory that the NDC enjoyed in the last election. Ghanaians themselves saw the level of devastation of the economy. And we know that it will take a long time to fix it. But the evidence, as testified by everybody that I quoted yesterday, from the IMF to the World Bank, to the African Development Bank, to Ghanaian economists, to everybody, the evidence is clear that this government is making a lot of effort to fix the economy, stabilize the city, pay our debts, manage our expenditure, and then bring us to a level where the economy can be on a sound footing for the private sector to be able to create the jobs. When you talk about job creation and you say you are center right, center left, and etc., all those ideologies now agree that you need a strong, vibrant private sector to create jobs, because all of them have evolved to a point where they accept that the state has some limitations in its capacity to create jobs itself. Because in the end, you will just create a huge, unaffordable bureaucracy, and you cannot sustain it budget-wise. So you need a vibrant private sector. How can you claim that you are committed to a vibrant private sector when interest rates in the banks are hovering around 50%, 30%, 40%? Which private sector can survive borrowing at 50%, 40%, 30%? Which private sector? No private sector will survive borrowing at that level. What is going to happen is that they will become uncompetitive, and all of them will become importers of finished goods. None of them will produce locally, because you can't borrow at 30, 40, 50%, and then produce and compete with Chinese firms that are borrowing at 3, 4%. If you recall, in 2024, there was a huge issue between Ghanaian traders and Nigerian traders. You are all here, you remember? It's a huge battle. Why were Nigerian traders here? Why should we accept Nigerian traders? And Nigerian traders were undercutting us. They were selling lower than the prices that Ghanaian traders were selling. The answer is simple. They were borrowing at a lower rate in Nigeria. So when they came to Ghana, they could easily reduce their prices, whereas the Ghanaian traders were borrowing at a very high interest rate. So when they went to China to buy the goods and came, they could not compete with the Nigerian traders. Very simple economics. Very, very simple, basic, secondary school economics. So there's no way you can profess to be a strong advocate of private sector when you have such an abnormal interest rate. So the task of this government has been, one, bring the interest rate down. How do you bring the interest rate down? Stop borrowing from the banks as a government. If you cut down how much government is borrowing from the banks will be forced to look for private sector to lend from them. And in trying to look for private sector to lend from them, they'll be forced to bring down their interest rates. And that is what we have done so well, that interest rates have come down drastically within a very short period of time. The same, inflation. If the public does not have the capacity, the purchasing power, how are they going to patronize the goods of the private sector? They will produce, but the people cannot patronize. So there will be no market. So you have to drive down inflation. How are we going to bring down prices if the exchange rate is so high? Private sector people are going to produce something, and then they need so much money to exchange into dollars to go and import the inputs, the raw materials for production. So anybody who understands basic economics knows that the best incentive for the private sector to thrive and do well is maintaining a decent microeconomic framework. And that is the work that we have done. And that is why I was boasting on the floor of the House that if you look at the indicators, we are doing well. Our inflation has come down to single digit. Lending rates have come down in the private banks. The exchange rate has come down drastically. And so private sector has an opportunity to now go to the commercial banks and then lend and invest and do business and create jobs for everybody. Let me assure you that it is not the idea of government to take public money and invest in something called 24-hour economy. No. No. So if you are waiting for us to bring you a document in Parliament say we are taking so much money to invest in 24-hour economy, you won't see it. The whole idea behind the 24-hour economy is create the enabling environment for the private sector to be confident to invest and run the economy 24 hours. And so you are looking at an entire value chain from the issue of land. How do you access lands for, let's say, large-scale commercial agriculture? From the issue of how do you build the infrastructure for irrigation, for large-scale commercial agriculture? How do you ensure that there are roads leading to the farms? Many of these things are matters that the state should allow the private sector to do, except that we should give them the necessary incentives. You said that you were doing one district, one factory. I beg you, you are a journalist. You've been in this country for the past 8 years. Show me how many of the so-called new factories were functional as at December 7, 2024, when you were leaving, when we had the, January 7, 2025, when you were leaving office. How many of those factories? Because it was more of a political slogan than real sound policy. No new factories were ever functional as of January 7, 2025. In the end, what did we see? We saw you going to existing factories and getting them to come and apply. And then, based on whatever consideration, you selected some of the existing factories and then gave them huge tax exemptions. claiming that they were going to expand operations to create jobs. We are going to call for an audit of the monies that they gained by the tax exemptions and to see if indeed those monies went into expanding their operations in the first place. But that was not even the original idea. The original idea and the policy framework is that you establish one factory in every district so that industrialization will go across the country. You did not take time to establish the raw material base for the factories. So many factory structures were constructed, but could not be functional because they didn't even have the raw material base. So if I challenge you to actually show how many jobs were created, beyond the actual job of constructing them, how many jobs were created in actually running factories, you just won't be able to produce any significant figures. Those are the facts. And you all live in this country, and you live in those districts. So I plead with you that if I were you, I would stay far away from trying to tout an MPP record, because that record was decided upon by Ghanaians in the last election. Let me talk about COVID-19 levy. Indeed, as you know, we don't run the country alone. We run the country sometimes in consultation with, let's say, the World Bank, the IMF, because you've gone to sign commitments with them. You signed the commitments with them. You went to the IMF, sought support, and they agreed to give you the support based on conditions. Condition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you know very well that COVID-19 was one of the conditions. You know very well. And you know very well that you can't just get up one early morning and take out everything without serious engagement and without showing how you're going to deal with the shortfall that will result from taking out that one. And if you recall, we said we're taking out e-levy, we're taking out COVID-19 and several other taxes, the tax on betting and all those things. Those were going to have fiscal implications. And so when the analysis was done, we pushed and insisted, but in the end, it became obvious to us that we could take out all these other ones, but then for COVID-19, we needed to engage a little further. Subsequently, the finance minister indicated his readiness to take even that one out. So I'm not sure it's something that we should debate so much here. I do agree with you that the free SHS continues to be challenged, but as you can see, even there, we are making sure that it works. It works because it needs financing. And the NPP government had capped the GET Fund levy. Because you capped the GET Fund levy and took the money to other sectors, what happened was that SHS was not properly financed. It was not properly financed under the NPP. And you know that as a fact. You were in this country when schools couldn't reopen because the feeding grants did not go. You were here. You were in this country. So we uncapped it, and because we have uncapped it, GET Fund money is fully funding free SHS. When you say parents had to buy everything, which year in this country has it not been the case that when schools reopen for the first time and children have to go, that their parents have to buy chop boxes for them? Did we ever promise free chop boxes? Did anybody in this country hear anyone promise free chop boxes? Did anybody in this country hear anybody promise free spoons and cups and plates to carry to school in order to eat? Nobody ever promised anything like that. So when schools reopen and your parents have to buy their chop boxes, have to buy their spoons and cups and etc., how does that become an indication of a non-performing government? It's always been the practice under the NPP. When school reopened for the first time and children were admitted to school and they were going to school, their parents bought all those things as well. what we promise as free SHS is feeding, accommodation, teachers, textbooks. Those are the things we promise as free SHS. If I'm lying, anybody can raise their hands and say, no, those are not the things that you promise. Accommodation is free. Teachers are being paid. Feeding is available. No child has stayed at home because school grants haven't gone to schools. So free SHS is working. And that was why yesterday I said, yes, it may have been started by the NPP, but we in the NDC have shown that we are better implementers of the social intervention policies. Same with health insurance. You capped health insurance. If you thought health insurance was so important, why did you get Ghanaians to pass a law to raise funds for health insurance only for you to go and cap that money so that you can divert that money to other sectors in the name of dealing with rigidities, that there are fiscal rigidities and that the various statutory funds, are taking all the money and you can't do other initiatives for government because there are constraints in terms of financing. So you capped health insurance. You capped, Get Fund. We came and we uncapped them. And look at the amounts of monies that are going to fund healthcare delivery and the amount are going to fund free senior high schools. So I will insist that even if NPP started free SHS, I am saying that today NDC is a better implementer of free SHS. Even if National Health Insurance, as it is presently constituted, was started by President Kufuor, I am saying that today, as it is being implemented, NDC is a better implementer of National Health Insurance than NPP ever did. And the figures are showing, the statistics are showing, and there is more confidence in healthcare delivery now, more confidence in education service delivery now, because we're making sure that the funding is going to those sectors. I agree that we need to create more jobs. I agree, and if you listened to me yesterday, I was very, very candid on that the youth need more jobs, but jobs can only be created on the footing of a sound economic framework. And that has to happen first before the private sector can be enabled to create the jobs. And again, and I have to be very frank with fellow Ghanaians, that the conviction or belief or expectation that the state institutions should be overbloated so that jobs will be created is counterproductive. Because if Ghana Gas, which infrastructure was run with 120 workers, you go and employ 1,000 workers, as happened under the NPP. And the statistics are there. If it's challenging, we can summon the CEO to come and give us the statistics. When we constructed the gas plant, only 120 workers were there, managing the same gas plant. When we came back to office January this year, and we took over the plant, we saw that the same plant that we had 120 workers managing is now being managed by over 1,000 workers. Now, how can that state institution be profitable? There's no way it can be profitable. Because every money that they make, they'll have to use it to pay for labor. And so because it's not profitable, it cannot expand. If it were profitable, if it were run efficiently, so that they are managing it with 120 workers, they are making a lot of profits. By now, they could have used their earnings to establish a second gas plant and employ another 120, a third gas plant to employ another 120, and the challenges that we are having in the energy sector, we will not have to face those challenges. The reason why we are paying huge utility tariffs, and he mentioned it, so I just segue into that. The reason why we are paying huge utility tariffs is because we are using liquefied petroleum products that is, diesel and coal, to power our generators. And because diesel is expensive, if a power producer uses diesel to power his plant, he has to charge you, the consumer, the cost of the diesel. And if he uses gas to power his plant, his cost can go down, I'm told, by over 70%. Over 70%, I'm told. So the strategy of this government to be able to deal with the cost is to shift our power plants from those diesel products to gas, so that we can be able to drive down the cost of generation, and then we pass on the benefits of the reduced cost to the consumers, which is citizens for domestic use and industry, to power industry, so that Ghana can be competitive to be able to generate the jobs. If a factory is taking a decision between either siting in China or Ghana, one of the major conditions that they are asking for is energy cost affordable in Ghana? Is electricity affordable in Ghana? If electricity is not affordable in Ghana, they will not position the factory in Ghana, because if they site the factory in Ghana, they are going to be producing at a very high cost. But if they site it in China, they will produce at a very low cost, and even with haulage to Ghana, they will still be very, very competitive against a factory that has chosen to site its operation in Ghana. So if you don't reduce energy cost to a certain level, the private sector will just not be able to perform. About 3 weeks ago, the private sector organized a conference, a press, I'm sure many of you covered it, at which they raised the issue of energy cost and said that unless energy cost goes down, it will be difficult for them to survive. So that's the matter that, as a government, we are focused on. And in addition, you left us with a huge unreasonable debt at ECG. ECG, you were board chairman. You were board chairman. You know how much debt you left. You yourself have admitted it on the floor during debates about how bad the situation at ECG was when you assumed leadership there as board chairman, and efforts that you also tried to make to address that situation. At the time you were leaving office, you hadn't fixed it. The debts are still lying there. Who's going to pay for those debts? Who is going to pay for those debts? You stopped them in 2024. You stopped PURC from adjusting tariffs because you are afraid of its implications on you for elections. The records are there. You stopped them. He's not denying it. You stopped them from adjusting tariffs in 2024 because you were afraid of the implications on your electoral fortunes if they adjusted tariffs. So the debt kept mounting. Because if you are producing at a very high cost, and then government is forced, ECG is supposed to take it at that high cost, and the ECG doesn't adjust the tariff to reflect the cost at which they are taking the commodity, and yet they are supposed to sell it to consumers at a very low cost. Who is going to pay the differential between how much they are buying and how much they are selling it to consumers? That is normally done through gradual, tariff adjustments. And you stop them from adjusting the tariffs. So the debt just kept ballooning to very, very unreasonable levels. Billions and billions of Ghana cedis of debt at ECG. That has to be addressed. But for the engineering that we have done to make sure that lights never go off, so that they can always afford diesel to run the power plants, for us to have 24-hour, electricity, it would have been very difficult. But even as you do that, you must work towards a sustainable arrangement. And one of it is that you must be realistic in terms of the adjustment of tariffs. In addition, you must deal with the inefficiencies and the corruption. The corruption. I'm told that as ECG, they've procured things that they need in the next 4 or 5 years. You procure for just a year, and then the next year you procure, and the next year you procure. Why do you go and procure things that you need for 5 years? Some of them, their lifespans don't even go up to 5 years. So they will get destroyed in the process, and that will be causing financial loss to the state. So we are fixing the corruption and the mess there. We are fixing the inefficiencies. We are cutting down on the wastage. And we are trying to make ECG very, very profitable, ECG and NEDCO. And go and see what is happening there. It is now working well. But it takes time to deal with the legacy debts. And Ghanaians need to support us to deal with those issues. At the same time, you must have a long-term strategy to drive down power production cost. So the president and government have decided to increase our gas production capacity. So a new gas processing plant is going to be constructed so that we can have additional gas to be able to power all the gas plants with power plants with gas, so that production costs will come down drastically and we can sell power much, much cheaper to both household consumers and for industrial use. In the meantime, government has also decided that we are going to look at the distribution challenges, because there's so much infrastructure challenge that is causing a lot of wastage in the distribution. So if you buy 10 megawatts of power as ECG from a power producer, because your infrastructure is inefficient, by the time it gets to the consumers, let's say 2% of it has been leaked through inefficiencies. So you need to fix the distribution infrastructure. So when you buy 100%, by the time it gets to the consumers, even if there is, some waste, maybe some 0.something%, leakage and waste, then the full amount, close to the full quantity of what you have purchased actually gets to the consumers. Second thing is inefficiency in the collection of revenues. And so government has also decided that we are introducing private sector participation in the distribution and the collection of the electricity tariffs. And so when we do that, look, the global best practice is that utilities are able to recover 98% of their revenues. That's the global best practice. In Ghana, ECG was collecting only 85%. 85%. But the global best practice standards is 98%. So the difference between the 98% and 85% was actually loss occasioned in the distribution and the revenue collection. So we want to bring in private sector participation. There was an initial idea, PDS was a model for bringing in private sector participation, but thanks to the character of those who were introducing it, it got botched because of the manner in which the attempt to introduce it went. So those are the issues. I do agree with you that so far the macroeconomic indicator stabilization has not fully translated, is that okay, into job creation. But again, that is a function of confidence. The private sector needs to see you sustain it for them to be confident to now make the investments in expanding their factories and their industries. And 9 months is not enough to sustain, to build confidence in the system that you have built, so that they can say, okay, I think the dollar will remain where it is, so let me go and borrow and establish a new factory. I think interest rates will remain where it is, so let me go and borrow and then establish a factory. Or I think inflation will remain where it is, and so purchasing power of consumers will stay the same. It takes time to build that confidence. So even though we've brought down the indicators, because it takes time to build confidence in private sector for them to actually invest, to expand and create jobs, that has not yet happened. But if we stay the course and confidence is built, you will see people, one after the other, beginning to make the necessary investments to do the expansions that will create the jobs in the private sector. So I agree with you, but that is something that will follow when we stay the course and we build the confidence. So I didn't think this briefing was going to be about economic performance and etc. and a banter between both sides. I thought it was more of a briefing to discuss the program of Parliament for this meeting. But the way you started turned it into a debate about the records of the two governments. And so I was forced to respond. Otherwise, I didn't want us to go in that direction. I think that we're just meeting our in-house media partners and then to brief them on the program and agenda of the session. And then we will... Oh, why are you laughing? I didn't want to go there. I didn't want to go there. No, as you see, I don't have a speech responding to him. But we are covered live, isn't it? So if he says things and I don't respond, it may seem that what he has said is true. So if you say it, I'll be forced to respond. But my real agenda coming here, really, was to discuss this, which is just the agenda for the session. I had no speech on the economy or, info analytics and etc. What he failed to achieve in the chamber yesterday, he thought he could use this platform to achieve it. That's what he's trying to do. He's my brother. We know each other very well. In spite of all the things that you see, we are very, very good friends. So, and I know him. I knew he was going to do that. Because after the program, he told me, hey, is that what you did to me? Tomorrow, I'll also do it to you. So I'm not surprised that he's doing it. So, no. We have a very healthy democracy. Ghana has a very, very healthy democracy. Other countries get shocked when they come and see how, as politicians, we relate to each other. Because in other jurisdictions, the politicians just don't relate at all. But here, we relate nicely. We try to argue on points. We may say all the things that we're saying here, but when we walk out there, we start discussing our personal issues, we are friends, we are working. And we try to encourage that among the citizenry also, that let it just remain at the level of discourse about who is doing better, but don't translate it into violence, is that okay? And other tendencies that will destroy our society. That's why once in a while you see in Ghana, the chief imam will go to the Catholic Church and meet the bishops because we want both religions to see that we just have difference in how we all want to go to paradise, even though we all don't want to die. But we are not enemies. The fact that you choose to believe in this doesn't mean that, you are my enemy. So the leaders keep engaging publicly to send that signal that we are not enemies. That's why at functions you see President Mahama will go and greet former President Akufo-Addo. They engage so that the support base will see that, after all, they are not really enemies. It's just that they have different views about how to run the economy or how to run the country. So I welcome that. And I am committed to also sustaining the quality of our democracy. But yesterday, I did give indications as to the agenda of this meeting of Parliament, so I'm not going to repeat it. If you have any questions, you can ask. But basically, this is a budget meeting. And those of you who have been in this house for very long, you know what a budget meeting is. It is the meeting at which the budget is presented to the House. And so we will wait for the finance minister to give an indication when he will be ready to present the budget. As it is now, they have been holding budget hearings. The various ministries, agencies, departments, constitutional bodies, they've all been going to the Ministry of Finance for budget hearings where they normally give them a ceiling, they come to justify why the ceiling should move from there to a different position and how much more they need and all that. And then once he synthesizes what everybody needs and what he can give, then he's able to put together a budget that covers everybody and brings it to this house for us to deliberate on and approve. So it won't be any different. It will be the same thing that we've done over and over for the past 3 decades. So nothing exceptional in terms of procedure. But of course, in terms of content, it is only the finance minister who will be able to tell us what the content of the budget is. So being a budget period, you as journalists, you know what to do. When the budget is being presented, you know what to do. When it's referred to committees, you know what to do. Committees are reporting, you know what to do, and etc. So it's the same thing. In addition, the normal private business of members of parliament, which is questions to ministers about policies and programs, all the issues that he has raised here, I hope he will just ask simple questions about them, and the ministers will come and answer those questions to him. The other thing also is people ask all these questions about their constituencies and etc. Ministers will come and answer. And then the usual statements that parliamentarians will make on issues, their colleagues will debate them. Motions will be brought, and yesterday he drew attention to some motions that have been pending for a while now. We'll look at all of them. I plan to bring some motions to call for some hearings on job creation for the youth, because I consider it as a very, very important agenda that must be pursued by this House, which is to push the various institutions of state to try and then engage in policies, design and implement policies and practices that will create jobs. For instance, if you look at our extractive industry, it has turned out that we're exporting more gold from small-scale miners than even what the large-scale miners have been exporting. I'm sure it is not the first time this is happening. I'm sure it has always been the case, except that in the past, we haven't pursued policies that encourage the small scale to sell the gold to the state. So there was a lot of smuggling. I'm not saying smuggling has stopped, but there was a lot of smuggling of gold. Because even those days, if you recall, when you went to China, China would give you a different figure of gold imports from Ghana than Ghana will give of gold exports to China. Whilst the Chinese system is able to actually detect gold sent to them, we couldn't detect how much gold was going out of our country. And so there was always disparity between what every country reported as the volume of gold imported from Ghana and what we reported as the volume of gold exported. And a lot of it was coming, a lot of the gold smuggled, a lot of it was coming from small-scale mining activities. But because we implemented a very innovative policy, which is the gold board policy, it encouraged the small-scale miners to now start owning up and then giving it to the state instead of giving it to smugglers. And so we're beginning to see that, so after all, our small-scale miners are producing more than our large-scale miners. Now, this calls for a rethink of our extractive industries. Should we be pursuing domestic ownership of the mining industry as against foreign ownership of the mining industry? Will we benefit more if we encourage locals to take control of the mining industry? If they have this capacity, how can we nurture the capacity so that everything is controlled by us instead of foreigners coming? And there's been a process that has led up to where today, even for the big foreign mining companies, they actually employ Ghanaians through contract mining. So the foreign companies will own the mine, but the actual mining activity, earth moving, excavation, haulage, this, that, are all done by Ghanaian firms. So can we move from, you made me speak 1 hour, 30 minutes. You raised so many issues. I needed to respond to those issues.
20 minutes to 1 hour, 40 minutes.
I didn't time you because I believe in freedom of speech. So I allowed you to speak as much as you wanted to speak. And when you were satisfied, you stopped. And I'm now responding. Now you're worried about my responses.
No, your time.
Anyway, so basically, we will look at the extractive industries through a series of public hearings. We have a Supreme Court Chief Justice nominee, and so it is something that is going to occupy this House during this meeting. And I think also that there are a few private member bills that may come, and when they come, we'll take them. Government has a lot of business. The various legislation that I outlined yesterday on the floor of the House, many of them will come. Some of them are still going through the process of receiving cabinet approvals. Some have already received cabinet approvals. And so those that have already received cabinet approvals, we will work on them. Those that are yet to, we will urge the ministers to expedite action on that and bring them. But this meeting is largely going to be dominated by the consideration of the 2026 budget. Let me conclude on the note that, as you can see, Parliament now has its own television station. A lot of work has gone into establishing that station with the support of GBC. And so we will continue to enhance the capacity of Parliament's TV so that we can run a very open Parliament. As of now, the system is able to support proceedings in the chamber. I think the Director of Broadcasting, yeah, you are here. We have plans to also install facilities in our committee rooms. This being a budget meeting, a lot of committee work will take place. So we want to install facilities in the committee rooms so that even at the committee stage, deliberations over sector policies and estimates can be covered live on television. If that had happened, he would not be saying today that he hasn't seen anything about our major flagship policies. Because if we were covering the proceedings at committee live, people would have called in to say, oh, but Osahin, I saw the youth committee discussing the apprenticeship program, and there was a presentation by National Youth Authority and everything on the details, and the committee reported on it. I saw it on television. So we want to run a very open Parliament, very transparent governance system. And so we are going to improve the capacity of our committee rooms to record and transmit live the sittings of committees. So that way, you know, everything that we do, both chamber and committee work, will be covered live on national television. On that note, I will want to thank you, given that my partner is uncomfortable, my colleague is uncomfortable with how much time I'm spending. I have a lot to tell you, but he says that I'm talking too much. So I will stop at this level. I see he has been copiously writing. If you say, I will respond. So I'm just drawing your attention that if you say anything new, I will respond to whatever you have said. We can sit here till tomorrow. I will keep responding. So let's take a decision how we want to moderate this particular session. Thank you very much.
We will now move into the session that gives you the opportunity to pose questions to leadership. Please indicate your interest. When acknowledged, you introduce yourself and the media outlet that you represent. Please, let's be concise. We are live on Parliament TV, TV3, Channel 1, and on all Parliament social media platforms. Kweku.
Thank you. My name is Kweku Sechidanso. Majority Leader, I just want to find out from you, knowing that this meeting is a budget meeting and a very busy meeting, will there be an opportunity for the Human Sexual Rights and Family Value Bill? And with the revised the new standing orders now, will the committee meetings be open to the media? All the committee meetings be open to the media? And then Minority Leader, just to find out, as the minority side have expressed reservation about the removal of the Chief Justice, would you participate in the work of the appointment committee, as the Speaker has made a referral to the appointment committee? Thank you.
Prince.
Thank you very much. My name is Prince Akwa, United Television, UTV in short. The first question goes to Minority Leader. Minority Leader, is it not too early to criticize this government over the youth calling for job? Because I remember in the previous administration, this NAPCO was beautifully launched, and just after 2 years, those youth were on the street demonstrating, calling for their salary. The youth in afforestation and then NAPCO, that is one. And then again, Majority Leader, when you were in opposition, you were too loud. You and one minister, I won't mention his name because he's not here. But since these days, you've developed some defense mechanism. Whenever there's a hit on you, you try to go on personal. Is that what you describe as a beautiful democracy? Thank you.
We'll take the last one and give leadership opportunity to respond. Ahmed.
Thank you very much. It's good to see my good friends, brothers, Honorable Mama Yarega and Osayini here. Two things. Leader, when you define beautiful democracy, I mean, Honorable Mama Yarega. Yeah, when we say Ghana possesses a very beautiful democracy, let me add the adverb of degree, very. And we see what is happening with Iyoku and other state institutions that are breaching constitutionally rules and regulations. So when you say beautiful democracy, what do you mean? Number two, to Osayini, I don't know if you knew about the status of this meeting before you came in with us now. And lastly, Honorable Mama Yarega, you are here alone. I'm sure your colleagues, members of your leadership from your side know the importance or the role of parliamentary press corps. We can see you alone here. I don't know if you're not able to marshal your colleagues to be here to give you that support. And I think as a senior member of this press corps, it is not right when your colleagues knew that you're going to meet the members of the press corps and they left you alone and no any reason given to us. Then lastly, to our Media Relations Department, I think this is an important unit created by the Board of Parliament. My close observation shows that this unit needs a lot of support. So since you two distinguished gentlemen are here, I think we'll plead with you, and luckily you're also members of the board, that the media relations, the broadcasting unit, the other unit, public engagement, these are two units that deal with media. And I think they need serious financial support. You see, I think I'm a prophet. When I said this, I saw the deputy leader coming. That's fine. You know, I think these three units within Parliament, really department, they need financial assistance. Look, leader, this unit organized program for the members of press corps. You know, we need to buy data, we need to buy some things. You know, our media institutions do not take care of themselves very well. I mean, that's the reality. So at least we did a program for the past 5-6 months. Till now, anytime you meet the director of the unit, he keeps on telling us stories. And I think it's very important. So please, the financial issue of these three units, leaders, I'll plead with you to make some noise for them. So that, when it happens to them, I'm sure they also do the needful. Thank you very much.
We will give. Yes, we will give
So
leadership
just the last
opportunity to
one.
respond.
We do appreciate the work of the unit. Indeed, if she opens her text message, she will tell you that yesterday I had a meeting with the speaker. I raised all those issues, and the speaker said, I haven't given him memos for approval by the board. So I should bring all those requests. And I immediately sent her a message, and she assured me that this afternoon we'll meet, and then she would put together all the requests, and then I can present it to the Parliamentary Service Board for consideration. So you're right, we need to resource the unit, and we are committed to doing that. She will tell you that even the television station, she will tell you that a lot of it I had to personally fund it. They are here, you can ask them. I funded it, and then took some money from my caucus accounts and used NDC caucus money to support, to establish it, because Parliament had some constraints over the years. So we are meeting this afternoon to see the entire financial outlay, which I presented to Speaker. He says, do memos, let's get it approved by the board, and then let's see how we can raise the funds to make sure the unit functions very well. So yeah, I agree with you, we'll do that. Then on the issue of participation in this press call, we did it last meeting we did it. So to tell you the truth, was it yesterday in the afternoon when I was leaving the chamber that one of you whispered to me whether I was ready, available this morning to do it. And I just said yes, and then I walked away. And I got home and they sent me a flyer, which I woke up and saw early this morning. I assumed that they will inform the entire leadership. He didn't know. It was when I got here and I realized I was alone, then I called him. I asked them, and they were like, oh, they didn't tell everybody. So I started calling my colleagues. I called him, he was 45 minutes away. So he said, look, I didn't know it would be happening this morning. I'm 45 minutes away, but I'm coming. So just at the point when you were raising the issue, you saw that he was coming in. The whip has to travel to Rwanda on Pan-African Parliament assignments. So he is not in the jurisdiction. And the deputy whip on my side is also attending IPU meeting with the clerk. That's why the clerk is also not here. The clerk has also gone with a team of MPs to attend Interparliamentary Union meeting. I was actually supposed to be in the Interparliamentary Union meeting this morning. I just decided not to go because Parliament has just resumed. So most people are on other assignments. It's not because they don't respect the parliamentary call or they don't think that this is an important engagement. So getting to participate in committee proceedings. Yes, we're trying to be as transparent as possible. And so when I'll get there. I was saying, yeah, okay. Yeah, so when we get to the point where we have invested in the infrastructure, we will encourage the committees to open up their activities to the parliamentary press corps so that you can participate and listen to the deliberations that are going on. And beautiful democracy. Yeah, I mean, the thing about democracy is that there's always a tension between the rules guaranteeing freedom and the rules demanding accountability for misconduct. There's always a tension. I'm sure if you watch CNN, you will see, what is the organization? The one that's responsible for enforcing immigration rules. ICE. You see the fights between ICE and the opposition and the judiciary and Donald Trump because he feels he has a duty to protect his country, to take out illegal immigrants who are violating the law, in his name, criminals, and etc. At the same time, the judiciary is saying, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do it this way, and etc. There's perpetually a tension between the rules guaranteeing freedom and the rules demanding accountability. And so there will be friction now and then, but the same rules also provide a mechanism for addressing the friction. The thing about democracy is that when the mechanisms for dealing with the friction are also allowed to work, then democracy is beautiful, okay? So I want to assure you that in spite of whatever you may think, this is a country that has a beautiful democracy. We are engaged in the optics, which has a psychological impact on the population, but at the same time also, the institutions have to function. And where you think that an institution has crossed the line, you can activate the necessary remedial measures that democracy equally guarantees. So that's what I can say. I respond in a personal way. I don't know what is personal. If I'm passionate in my response, it's not personal. I don't know what that really meant because you didn't give me an example for me to, but if that is the perception, we are all learning and trying to improve on our performance. Human Sexual Rights and Family Values Bill, my recollection is that it was passed by Parliament already. That's my recollection, that we passed this already as Parliament. We passed it. And the issue was giving it a presidential assent. So that is where it should be taken up. I don't see why anybody should bring us a bill that we have passed already. I think the step is to push for it to be given the assent. Yesterday I saw it on the order paper, and then I was asking myself, but who brought this? And really, a bill that we have passed already, you haven't convinced me that, there's a need for us to work on a bill that we have already passed. So in all sincerity, and I like to be very, very frank and open, I did ask the speaker, Mr. Speaker, but this bill was passed, and why is it on our order paper again? And then Speaker himself also expressed surprise finding it on the order paper. And I recall we invited the clerk. The Speaker invited the clerk in my presence and asked the clerks, how did this bill find its way advertised on the order paper? Because he too didn't know how it got on the order paper. I mean, I like to be very, very transparent. If the clerk, I wish he were here, I would have said in his presence. Yesterday, this thing happened. I saw it, I was like, this bill, what is it doing here? We passed it already. Well, we've been invited to consider it again. And so that is so the only one that indeed yesterday Speaker and I agreed should attract our attention is the one brought by Honorable Patricia Ajay. She is here. That is the Property Rights of Spouses Bill. So yesterday, Speaker and I agreed that for that one we can work on it because it's new. Even though we know government also has plans, we said, well, government hasn't brought theirs first, and the private member has brought hers first. So we'll consider that one. If they want, they can come and join and then introduce the amendments. So that was discussed yesterday. But for this one, my recollection is that Speaker doesn't know about it. I think the other questions were asked of my colleagues. So.
Thank you, Leader of Government Business. Let me deal with the issue of the CJ's removal, whether or not we are going to participate in any process. For us, all the cards are on the table. First of all, we see the conduct of the Puaman Committee as a travesty of justice. I mean, what that committee has done, the purported recommendation, should prick their own conscience, all the committee members. A referral has been made to you as a committee, and at least 4 of the members of the committee are judges, a retired Supreme Court judge, and 2 sitting Supreme Court judges. You have 3 petitions before you. You are done with the hearing of 1. You tell the person, the respondent, being Her Ladyship Justice Araba Esaba Tokunu, and her lawyers, that come back on the 15th for us to begin the hearing of the second petitioner's petition. Then suddenly, the second petitioner's lawyers write for a long adjournment. And out of the blue, a report is purportedly done, recommending her removal. And within 2 hours, the report is fully studied and recommendation as made is complied with or adhered to or decision taken. The Puaman Committee must be ashamed of itself. That committee has reduced our democracy to something that cannot have a phrase to describe. That you are a committee, a constitutional body, a constitutional committee under Article 146. You have been given a docket, so to speak, to handle. You are not done with the hearing. You say you are done with the decision. I'm sure if our friends were in office, were in opposition, and this had happened under an MPP government, hell would have broken loose. I'm sure the noise they will make in this country. But you know, our approach is different, to follow due process and engage the attention of the country. That is why we keep raising these things. In any event, the respondent, Gertrude Araba Esaba Tokunu, the Chief Justice, has a case in court challenging the constitutionality of the actions that have been brought against her, raising issue of procedural irregularities. And these are matters that are before the court. At the High Court, at the Supreme Court. And if you see the rate at which the Supreme Court itself move with some speed to expeditiously hear the injunction application, yet fail to expeditiously determine the substance of the matter. It tells you so many things. And I'm speaking to the Supreme Court of our country. You have a plaintiff who comes with a constitutional matter and comes with an interrogatory application. You hear the interrogatory application, but the main application you are not in a rush to determine. You go to the High Court. The High Court, the matter is before the High Court. There is no hurry to determine it. You leave it in abeyance. Then my Lord Puaman is in a hurry to sign, quote unquote, the death warrant of his colleague. What my Lord Puaman forgot is that when he was nominated as a Supreme Court judge, there were matters against him at the General Legal Council, Parliament. Some people petitioned Parliament that because the matter has not been determined, we should stop the hearing. But Honorable K.T. Amoh prevailed on colleagues, though he was in opposition, and said, no, there must be fairness. The man has been nominated. We as Parliament, we have vetted him. We have to be fair and not say that because somebody is doing this against him, that should stop Parliament. So we have to be fair. People must always think about tomorrow. A certain precedent is being set. that blots the beautiful democracy we otherwise have. So now, my Lord Bafuboni is now being nominated. A matter is pending in the Ghanaian court and also at the ECOWAS court. The ECOWAS court, there was an interim relief. As we speak, the Attorney General has not filed a process to respond to the substantive matter, at least through the press release that was put out by Her Ladyship Justice, the Chief Justice. She is a plaintiff in the matter at the ECOWAS court. So, we must ask ourselves, what do we want to achieve? Sometimes our friends talk about certain things that happened to them yesterday. I will repeat this for the umpteenth time. This, you do me, I do you. Oh, it happened yesterday, it must happen today. To what end? So that, for the sake of argument, if you succeed in finally kicking out this innocent woman who all her life has served her country, private practice, getting into high court, getting to court of appeal, and finally Supreme Court, and the honor of being a Chief Justice, you kick her out. And MPP comes into office in 2029. You have a Chief Justice. You've set the precedence. But must we, the political leaders, subject ourselves to these? No. We can do better. And that is what I call on my friends to do. We can do better. And some of the judges at the Supreme Court who may think in one way or the other, must shut their eyes. Well, tomorrow is waiting on all of us. Today we hear that some High Court judges who were to be sworn in, there was a postponement of the swearing in, and now some have been told that for circumstances beyond control, your appointment has been withdrawn. How sad. How sad. So let's be careful with this reset. The reset must be positive. The reset must be positive. Let's be careful how this reset is being managed, because there is always a tomorrow. There is always a tomorrow. We need to manage how we want to go about things. So, Mr. Kweku Sechidansu, correct? I got your name correct? We have preliminary constitutional issues to raise, and I am sure that at the right time, you will know the minorities' approach. Whatever approach we will take will be to serve the good interests of the people of Ghana, and we will do just that. On the issue of whether or not it's too early to criticize, you know, when the reins of government is entrusted into your hands from day one, the opposition must be alert. So there cannot be anything like too early in this context. You know, in the early days, they started dismissing people. My respected colleague, the leader of government business, has tried as much as he can to justify claiming irregularities and claiming that certain due process wasn't followed, etc., etc. My question is, isn't there a word in law we call ratification or rectification? Can the substance be looked at? Hasn't equity told us that where substance and form clash, substance will take precedence? So the issue is, if somebody has been employed 2 years, 3 years, 6 months, he's in office and has acquired rights and has a legitimate expectation that having conducted himself or herself well in the employ of his employer, he or she would regularly be maintained or retained. Do you come and say, because of the way you were employed? Can a man deny paternity merely because a son is out of wedlock? If it is established that indeed you are the father, the form that that child came doesn't matter. What matters is that there's a child. Is that okay? So I disagree strongly with our friends when they say, oh, some irregular, so people who have been employed must be sacked, and we don't have to talk about it. And even that motion is still pending. Leader raised a preliminary objection, and then we filed a motion to challenge it. I pray that we will be able to take that full motion. I think I feel compelled to react in one line to an issue he raised about ECG. Well, I assume that he raised it on a lighter note, but the point is that, yes, I chaired ECG board. I was appointed in July. My first meeting was end of September. So practically, I was in ECG for some 2 months. We rounded up our last meeting somewhere in December. So actively 2 or 3 meetings. However, being a private sector person, I'm an entrepreneur. When I got to ECG, the first thing I tackled, and the record will bear me out, was to deal with this issue of their suppliers being contracted to import goods at CIF value. I realized that no, it was waste. That the contractor brings the cables and dumps them at the port, and then you have so much pressure on you, and you would have to pay the duty yourself. So the supplier brings you the bill of lading. I said no. It was one policy decision I took that no, change this from today under my leadership. Any contract that is awarded, it should be to delivery to your warehouses and at no extra cost. And that is what I did, and the board minutes would confirm that. Regarding legacy debts and all, well, I think that the two of us, the two political parties, must have a sit down on this. You see, my style is that it's not everything that we should be at each other's throat. ECG has a problem that must not be given a partisan color. ECG has problem with inefficiencies, and it's in the end affect government fiscal status. So can we sit and really agree that there must be reforms? And that is why I said on the House floor that I support reforms, but we cannot support tariff increment. So you bring 14%. The problem has not been solved. I was there. That 14%, you burden Ghanaians, but the wastage is still there. So why don't we focus and even introduce some hybrid form of privatization? Not a full-blown privatization, but we can introduce some level of private sector participation that would ensure efficiency. But leader forgot that in their previous administration, they introduced this take-or-pay agreement. I don't want to go there. But this take-or-pay, where even if you don't produce, because if you produce and it's not being used, government must pay. That one is also there, but that is not the main issue for consideration. We as minority have expressed concern about those flagship programs, the policies, that they must come as policy document. Mere mention in a budget statement is neither here nor there, and I beg to disagree with him most respectfully. Budget hearings do not provide detailed policy document. No. I've been in Parliament for, this is my 4th term. A Minister of State must introduce properly the policy document. In any event, the 24-hour economy policy is there. They launched it. What is stopping them from bringing same for parliamentary scrutiny? At the heart of my argument is Parliament opportunity to scrutinize. So if you say I should follow media, I should do this anyway, it's part of the politics, I understand. Let me raise the issue of the Gwinyiri situation, the insecurity at Gwinyiri, where 31 people were killed and some 50,000 plus people displaced. We, as minority, are expecting the Minister of Interior to brief the House on what is being done so far, because our caucus deputy ranking on foreign affairs was in Cote d'Ivoire and met some of our Ghanaian compatriots who have been displaced. We would come out with a full statement on this, very soon. But we expect the Minister of Interior to deal with this matter, brief Parliament, what is being done. You know, we are aware of the intervention government is making in the Boko situation, where Otumfuo has also come in to, give a roadmap for peace. We appreciate that effort. But what is happening in the Savannah region also requires similar assurances, because any Ghanaian displaced, amount to insecurity. And we need that. On the issue of the mess of 8 years, I consider those as political rhetorics. I wouldn't respond to it. We'll meet in the chamber and deal with it again. This is not a platform for debate. But I will conclude by urging leader of government business to encourage government to see to the implementation of the Agenda 111. The projects are stalling. These are state funds. This was a flagship initiative that was introduced. If truly they say they are good at implementing projects, initiatives, they don't introduce. You see, they don't introduce. They don't introduce initiatives, but they implement. Then we have introduced the Agenda 111. Please implement them. Our district need the hospitals. Healthcare is there to our people. That is why we introduced this Agenda 111. So we'll urge leader to take that up with the health minister or any minister who has been designated to take charge of the Agenda 111 and see to the implementation. I think I've dealt with the issues that were directed at me. If there are second round of questions, we will take them.
Before
the issue about whether status of the meeting, whether we came prepared. We are in opposition. We should appear at any program prepared, because government has the original data. So the only way opposition is taken serious is when the opposition researches and comes prepared. Like he said yesterday, if we are not prepared, he was going to take us by surprise. So we, his opening remarks, eh? You listen to him. His opening remarks, he covered every area. So, Mr. Ahmed, we have to come prepared, because there can be surprises.
Ahmed, I thought you were a journalist. Why is he referring to you as his partner that he has to come prepared with?
Ahmed is a journalist. Okay, next round of questions. I think I have a 1 p.m. meeting. By 1:40, I have to be out of here. If by that time we're not done, by 12:40, we're not done. Deputy leader and deputy whip, I would take the leave of leader, beg him to grant me the space so that I can. Yes, we need to go. Just, I think this is the longest, most engaging we've had. Is that not so? Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Okay, before we take the last batch of questions, we have been joined by the Deputy Majority Leader and member representing Cape Coast South, Honorable Kweku George Ricketts Hagan. The Coordinating Director, Public Affairs, Madam Keitado. Ibrahim.
Thank you very much. Leader, yes, I agree that this has been quite long, and I'm sure many of us are tired. So let's be snappy. First, this was out there. My name is Ibrahim Al-Hassan. I work with G1 TV and Star FM. Is Parliament broke? This is a very good opportunity to have this matter addressed. It was widely covered in the media that you were to return to the chamber last week. That didn't happen because as the legislative arm of government, you are broke. Is that the case? 1. 2, Majority Leader, are we still expecting the Attorney General or government generally to submit rules to govern Article 146 rules? You had mentioned at the last meeting that that's something that is in the works. Are we still expecting, especially given how strongly the Minority Leader feels about how Article 146 has been triggered?
My name is Rachel Korte from GBC. And I am concerned about the Volta Lake issue and the statement that was released by the minority yesterday. Now, in that statement, they said the MPP government in 2020 secured a financial facility of 150 million USD for the modernization and then safety of the Volta Lake Transport Limited. So from this, I can see that the concentration is on the Volta Lake Transport Limited. So I want to ask, did the government at that time consider the fact that most of the cases that happen on the Volta Lake has to do with the private boat operators? And then, if so, how is the larger plan of using that 150 million USD going to affect the businesses or the safety of the Volta Lake when it's being used mostly by the individual boat operators? Secondly, I want to also ask of the Majority Leader about their reaction to this statement made yesterday by the minority. If they really have access to that financial facility as claimed by the minority. Thank you.
Very much. My name is Ohinam Ponsa, and I work for Adom FM and Adom TV. Really, my concern has to do with the fight against Galamsey. When NDC is in government, what it says is different, and when MPP is also in government, what it says is different. I'm asking NDC and MPP leaders in Parliament, are we not romancing the issues and toiling with Ghanaians' heads over the fight against Galamsey? When are we going to see the fight against Galamsey in real situation where we know that we are improving? That is my first question. My second question has to do with persecution of former appointees. Is it not right that when a suspect has an issue, the government or the prosecutorial power will have to make sure that such person is sent to the court for the court to determine really what the situation is, rather than criminalizing those suspects really in public domain and before we get to the court to actually determine the substantive matter or whatever is against such a suspect. Are we not setting bad precedent going forward? My question is that we are prosecuting former appointees in the public domain before such persons are hauled before competent court of jurisdiction. And my point really is that why don't we do the other way around, rather than coming to the public and saying all manner of things and raising all manner of issues on them before we actually go to court to go and really investigate, or for the court to determine or otherwise what the accusations had been. Finally, this one goes to the leader of government business. Leader, through 2002 till now, we have had learning channel that belonged to GTV, which was used as a safeguard to help the young learners to learn, which Parliament has gone or picked that channel, and now that channel is not being used to teach the kids. Was it difficult for Parliament to really get a channel rather than closing down the learning channel and using same for parliamentary assignment? Thank you.
We'll end the question time with Felix.
Yeah, Leader. My name is Felix. Yeah, I work with Express News. First of all, Leader, I want to know from you, you made mention that the government intend going into the 1D, 1F, where tax waivers were granted, you want to do some audits form of. Can you clarify as to in which way this audit will take place, and whether this government will not grant tax waivers to factories? And then second, we heard in the news that the government intends introducing a bill for legal education reforms. May we know whether that bill has been brought to Parliament or on its way coming? Thank you.
I am Christian Yale from TV33 FM. This goes to Honorable Mahama Yaliga. I want to make a follow-up on an earlier submission you made on the anti-LGBTQ bill that Parliament passed the last time. We understand, and this is a constitutional issue, we understand that when a bill is passed by Parliament and it is not assented to by the President, it dies with that particular Parliament. Here we've even seen that there are changes to the proponent. The last time there were 8, now they are 10. Some old ones are out, there are new faces. How do you explain this if you maintain that it was passed and so ordinarily it shouldn't be brought back? How do you juxtapose it, knowing that ordinarily it must have died with the 8th Parliament, as a matter of fact?
We will now take responses from leadership.
All right, so since I have just 2 questions, I will do this so quickly so that leader can take up the rest, and after that I'll take your leave. Deputy leader will be here if there's a need for any follow-up. I think she has what it takes to respond to. First, on the issue of Galamsey. Sir, I agree with the sentiment you expressed. And I think what I said on the House floor echoes my own position on this Galamsey. Somewhere 2015, I will call it our ancestral cocoa farm in the Asin Fosu area. My cousins approached me that they needed money to buy the machine, what do we call it? Excavator. And I told them, why? This is a farm that great-grandfather, all of you go there, farm, make money. We know, since we were kids, that we have a cocoa farm there. Why? He said, oh, Obia richenu cocoa egufom, gold na abano, oman kofu nyiska. I'm just quoting them. I felt very sad. Not too long after that, Honorable Setekwe, at a finance committee hearing, lamented how Galamsey was affecting cocoa production. But prior to that, we know of the Anas Arimayel expose in 2010. I think that we must be collective. We, the political parties, must be collective and see that Galamsey as a common enemy. Because you see, when President Akufo-Addo boldly announced to the Ghanaian public that, look, I am even putting my presidency on the line, he meant well. But it is not President Akufo-Addo who would go into the forest in person. He has to implement that policy, that pledge, through people. And that is where we had challenges. I again recall that some constituents in the early days of the Galamsey fight had come to me that, oh, it looks like their friends are calling them to go back. Because these were fishermen who had been recruited to work on people's land, sites. And because of the fight, they had come home to do their fishing. And they had been called to go back. What was it? What they told me, oh, the soldiers allowed them to do it in the night, and they take some money from them. So their guys were calling them that, oh, there's still business, so come back and do it. The point I want to make here is that because of the partisan approach to it, these people who are involved in the business get protection. Because look at it. In 2020 elections, MPP lost all the mining areas. And there are videos where our friends in the NDC were there in these constituencies telling them that, oh, they are sacking you, they are denying you of your bread. So when we come, we will find a way of giving you cover or protection. There are videos, credible videos. So in the end, it became a partisan thing. But when those water bodies are polluted, like recently the Ayensu situation, the Ayensu River was so much polluted, those who drink are not covered by partisan colors. They are Ghanaians. The food we buy in Accra, the cassava, the vegetables, all of us are at risk. So for me, I will concede that political leaders could have handled this better if the enthusiasm, the momentum, that civil society, then led by my good friend and senior brother from Chiame, Ken Ashigbe, you know, what they started with City FM way back. If the political parties had given it the needed support, I'm sure would have gotten somewhere. So, unto my friends, I give them my word as a leader of the minority in parliament. I'm ready to support them if they themselves are more than ready to confront the issue head-on. So far, because they seem to be benefiting from this gold board is buying gold, you know, these same Galamseyers are selling to the gold board. Is there any mechanism to determine which gold is coming from the right source? And because the money is coming for them to stabilize the economy, stabilize the city, they are pretending, you know, that they don't know the sources of much of the gold that they are getting. But if we are ready, they are ready, because they have the government now. They have the authority of states. If they are ready, trust me, outside in parliament, I would lead my colleagues to support government to deal with this, because Galamsey is affecting my constituency. Though my constituents are not involved in Galamsey, the water we drink come from upstream, all the way from the eastern region. Ayensu, we know where Ayensu flows from, all the way and ends in in Winneba. So that's one thing. On the second issue of whether or not Parliament is broke, I'm sorry. As for that, I'm unable to answer. I will rely on the public statement that was issued by Mr. Speaker to explain why Parliament could not reconvene. He said, quote, circumstances beyond my control, end quote. So I don't have any other answer. Leader of Government Business is here. If he has some other information, he may share, but I would want to rely on what Mr. Speaker himself put out as a reason for not being able to get Parliament to reconvene. As to being broke and all that, they are your words. I don't know about it. So, colleagues, thank you for indulging me. Leader, I don't leave here out of disrespect. Bear with me. I have a pre-arranged meeting. I need to leave. I leave you with two able, your own mother is here. Don't bully her. Don't bully your mother. Don't bully your mother. And then your junior brother Jerry is here. Or you will leave for the two deputies. Yes, I think so. Or what do you think? Let's vote on this. The two leaders can leave. Then the deputies can. The monkeys play by sizes. I'm not too comfortable leaving my mother in your hands. So let's go.
He answered the questions that were posed to him, so let me just answer the ones that were posed to me as well, after which I can also leave. And our deputies may continue. Okay, so let's start with the last item, which is the fight against Galamsey. Truth of the matter is, I have been listening to the discussions, and I know it is something that we are all very passionate about. Whenever there's any threat to life, our reaction is generally different, and it can get very emotional. And in the midst of the emotions, facts get lost, okay? So first thing is, the president and the government have clearly indicated a commitment to fight Galamsey. What have we done? Government has indicated all the steps that have been taken. You know, we've always been involved in small-scale mining activities. And we've always lived with small-scale mining activities. I recall when I was a law student, I was a research assistant to, a teaching assistant, actually, of Fui Chikata, who was lecturing natural resources law. And he recruited me to do research, field research on small-scale mining practices and activities, because at that time, he was trying to propose legislation to govern small-scale mining activities. We're talking about 26, 27 years ago. And I did go around the country with a geologist, 27 years ago, with a geologist from Geoman Consult. I don't know if any of you knows Geoman Consult. And we went from community to community where small-scale mining activities, which is what Galamsey is, small-scale mining activities, unless the person engaged in the activity has a license. If you don't have a license, it is Galamsey. If you have a license, it is called small-scale mining. And it is in degrees. You have artisanal mining, which is what a lot of our young boys are engaged in, where they go and they just feel that there's gold here, and they start digging with pickaxes, with shovels, with headpans, and then they are carrying it to locations where they do their washing. That one is called artisanal mining. And it's been happening for years, in fact, for centuries. That's how mining was done until the Europeans came with large-scale mining activity where they introduced excavators and mechanized mining. Otherwise, we're doing artisanal. And the artisanal has persisted up to date. What was Ghana's problem? Ghana's problem started when people discovered that they could bring Chinese to come and join them, and the Chinese could afford machines, and they will work with the Ghanaians so that what I could use my pickaxe to dig for a month, the Chinese would dig out with their excavators in 2 days. So the level of exploitation accelerated through the utilization of machines. So the movement from artisanal hand digging by our young people who are unemployed and think that if they dig and get something, they can also sustain themselves. The movement from there to the use of excavators and dozers is what really became our problem. That was the real issue, because the scale just got huge within a very short period of time. So this government took a decision that we have to deal with that part of the problem. Hence the decision that we will seize every equipment that we find to stop that rapid, deterioration that is happening. And as at July, when the media briefing of the Minister for Mines occurred on the 23rd of July, he indicated that we had seized 177 excavators. 177 excavators, 4 bulldozers, 12 vehicles, 43 motorcycles, 155 pumping machines, 184 changfangs, 15 detector machines, 10 heavy-duty generators, and arrested over 1,345 people. Now, for those who are interested in the fight against Galamsey, when government says this, what I expect is to go out and confirm if this number of seizures did occur. Because if you're actually able to seize 177 excavators and stop them from working, do the calculation from the date of the seizure up to date. If those 177 excavators were actually on the ground excavating on a daily basis, calculate the level of damage that those excavators would have done to our Earth's surface. Then the volume of ore that they would have excavated and how much washing would have taken place, and etc. I expect that to happen. The second thing government decided to do was to block all importation of excavators. Arrest excavators in the field, block importation of excavators. So government has announced that we have hundreds of excavators parked at the port because we won't allow you to clear them. Before you clear, you have to come and establish that government has given you a contract and you are going to use the equipment to go and perform the contract. So the whole scrutiny of what you are going to use the excavators for has deterred many people from importing excavators. So I expect you to go to the port to find out, indeed, have they blocked excavators from coming into the country? The hundreds that government say we have blocked, are they actually there? Secondly, government says we are going to introduce surveillance of the movement of excavators everywhere in the country. So trackers will be installed in every excavator and every earth-moving equipment. So we can geo-monitor every earth-moving equipment to see where an excavator has moved and what it is doing there. Let me tell you, from my experience, I was Minister for Environment, and my job was really to deal with this issue. From my experience, the greatest thing that you can do is to take the excavators out of the system, to take the dozers out of the system, to take the chamfangs out of the system, because you would have reduced the problem from 100 to like 20. The 20 is the young people who are now there with their pickaxes and shovels, and they are digging. The rate at which they are going to do it is usually very, very slow, because human energy has its limitations. And the numbers can't just increase astronomically. So there has been a major progress in slowing down the process of, destruction of the environment through Galamsey events. And I just want you to go to the field and check. I expect anybody who really wants to accurately report on the level of progress to go to a site and take an aerial view and tell me which part of that site was dug in the last 8 years and which part of that site was dug in the last 7 months or 9 months. Are you getting the point? Because when you are driving and you see destruction, you might think it happened yesterday. Yeah, you might think it happened yesterday. But it is digging that has taken place for maybe 10 years. Digging that has taken place over 10 years. I'm being very honest. You know me, I speak freely. And nobody can stop me from speaking my mind. Nobody. So that is a more honest and accurate mechanism for really assessing progress that has been made beyond the passion that I see. We're passionate about it, but are those the real facts on the ground? Have you really gone there to check? When he talks about corruption in the enforcement, very true. Very, very true. You send soldiers, the soldiers say, hallelujah, my bread has been buttered. I used to be environment minister. I'll go to a Galamsey site, and then I'll ask, but how did these excavators get here? Because on my way here, I passed 5 barriers. So if I passed 5 barriers, how did this excavator, because it didn't pass through the bush to get to this place, it's also passed on the same road. So we need to discipline our security agencies. No DCE can accurately say he doesn't know where Galamsey activities are taking place in his district. Then you are not supposed to be occupying that post as a DCE. Because everybody's jurisdiction, they know. If Galamsey is happening in Boku, I can tell you where it is happening and how. And I can actually tell you which are the boys who are there doing it. So no member of parliament sitting in this house can claim not to know what is happening in his constituency. Same as no DC can claim not to know what is happening in his constituency, district. Same as no regional or municipal security committee or council can claim not to know what is happening in their area. And no one can claim that we cannot stop Galamsey. How can we not stop Galamsey? If we can't stop it, then we are a failed state. Because this is something that is happening in broad daylight at a given location. You can't be carrying the thing around and doing it. So when we are chasing you, then you carry it to this place. No, it's the same location. So if we are paying a police service, we are paying an armed force from tax money, they can't claim that they cannot stop this. But I can assure you that so much progress has been made. Now, when it comes to the artisanal activity of young people digging and etc., that is why we introduced the community mining initiative, because we can't stop them all together. We need to move them to locations and manage them at those locations, because it's an economic activity. What are Ghanaians really worried about? First, the destruction to the environment. Two, the chemical pollution. That's the real issue. And for me, that again is what is being addressed by recruiting so many EPA officers. And I know the EPA department has recruited thousands of people to now deploy them to all those sites so that they can show the small-scale community miners exactly how to use the chemicals to avoid the pollution. Because the large-scale miners are also using the same chemicals. Mind you, they're also using the same chemicals. So but they are supervised by EPA. They have permits. They come to the site. They see how you have planned the mine. They see exactly where you are going to use chemicals, and then where you are going to dump the waste, and how you are going to treat the waste, and then water that you have used, how you are going to purify the water before you discharge the water into the environment. For the large-scale mines, the EPA is focusing and making sure that all these are done. So they need to also be present when the artisanal and small-scale miners are also doing that. Now, there are structural issues that we must address. And I, yesterday, gave hints. One, all the artisanal and small-scale miners that you have seen out there, they all want to operate legally. Every single one of them wants to operate legally. And I'm saying this because as a former Minister for Environment, I have visited many sites. And each time I engage the actors, they say, Minister, we want to operate legally. We want a license. Nobody who has money to buy an excavator. As I'm sitting here, I'm struggling to get equipment to do roads in my constituency. It is so expensive, you can't even afford it. Nobody who has money to buy an excavator and a dozer will claim that they don't have money to pay a license for a small-scale license so that they can operate there legally. Because he's invested in an excavator, a dozer, Shamfang, and he doesn't want it to be seized. Do you get it? But the challenge that they face is that they cannot get the licenses. Why can't they get the licenses? You now move to minerals commissions. You find out that each time they submit an application, they are met with a response that somebody has already applied for a prospecting license for that area, so it is in the name of somebody's company. Meanwhile, that person is not there. He is not prospecting, he is not investing in mining, and so there's no job opportunity for the young people. So the first thing that we have to do, which I have promised to do, and which I actually hinted yesterday in my speech, is that we are going to call on the Minerals Commission to bring all the records of prospecting licenses. Let's see. Because each prospecting license, depending on the size, some of them are very small, but most of them are large, and they cover like 150 square kilometers, 77 square kilometers, 100 square kilometers. And people have plotted all these areas across the country in names that you cannot really establish who the names are. And then when these young people go to them, so give us a small space for us to do community mining, they say, oh, the place is clocked. Somebody has registered it as prospecting license. Some people have gone as far as plotting those places that they are very convinced have gold, and they have actually gone ahead to pay and obtain mining leases, and are keeping it for years. And every year they just go there, and then they pay the renewal, but they will not go there and invest in the mining. When the young people go and say, give us a small-scale license so that let's do it properly here, they are told that, oh, the mining lease, it belongs to somebody, so you can't get it. He looks around, he doesn't see anybody. He will start digging. He will start digging. The chief will say, go ahead and dig. I'm here. Anybody who says that he owns it, let him come and ask me, whatever question he has to ask. So people are accusing the chiefs. No, but the chiefs are sitting there. You have plotted the place. You have given it out to some ghost name. His children are sitting there unemployed. Your investor has not come to do large-scale mining so that he can get jobs for them and then livelihood opportunities for them. And then you are telling him that he should stop the children from digging. How is he going to stop them from digging? How else do you want them to live? So we must hold the Minerals Commission accountable. And then we must hold the EPA also accountable. EPA, and I used to head Ministry of Environment, and I know that if you don't present a license, even if they are sitting there, you are digging in front of them, they will say they have no right to interfere because you don't have a license. Even if they can come and guide you and say, look, you don't handle the mercury this way, you don't do it this way, you don't grind it this other way, that person would think they are being complicit in an illegality by going there to guide an illegal operator how he should carry out the activity in an environmentally, proper manner. So we need to address that issue as well, in addition to all the other efforts that government will put in place. I wish Minority Leader were here. He just said that he swears and he's ready to support, government to fight against Galamsey. At the beginning of the life of this parliament, if you all remember, we started first with a conference at Kempinski of MPs on how we can build a coalition of MPs to address the problem of small-scale mining. I don't know who remembers. At Kempinski. No, at Kempinski. It was widely covered. I mean, people remember where the Minister for Mines came and addressed us, where MPs were there. It happened. I organized it, so I know it happened. We invited the minority. He didn't come. He didn't. Not one single MP showed up. They treated it as an NDC MP's event. And from the beginning, the thing collapsed because there was no consensus to work together. You remember? Today, all over the place, I swear I'm ready to support. Let's stop the politics. Let's stop the politics. How ready are you to support? When we, from the beginning, we said, let's work together because I take a position that every illegal mining activity is taking place in the constituency of a particular member of parliament. And so let's start with that member of parliament. He can help us address the problem because it's a space that he has control over. And that was why yesterday I said that we will build a coalition of MPs committed to fighting corruption so that we can help the Minerals Commission, the other state agencies, to see how we can get small-scale mining done properly. I have one belief. I have done some small history, and I know that history has taught us that wherever there is gold, people will go and try and dig it. Whether it is in America, or in Japan, or in China, or in Africa, wherever there is gold, people will try and dig it. All that is needed is for a strong state that regulates the exercise properly. and make sure that, yes, go and dig it, but come to me for a license. When I give you the license, dig it properly, comply with all the protocols to maintain environmental standards. When you finish, reclaim the land, plant the trees, and then make sure that the trees have grown to cover the exposure that you have done of the Earth's surface. Period. That's the standard thing in the whole world. You can't stop it. It's a strong driver. People are really motivated. It's something that makes people rich overnight. So they will take all the risk. So it's just a strong state insisting and regulating it properly. And this parliament can help to ensure that that happens. And I assure you that in this meeting, you will see the effort that we will put into helping the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, first, to establish and verify what government is really doing. So we'll send teams out there to go and verify and establish and come and we'll present it and debate it on the floor. People will see that really there's been progress. And then the challenges they are facing in actually stopping it, we will work with them and use the goodwill of the MPs and their social capital within their constituencies to engage the youth and stop it. So I thank you very much for raising that issue. You raised the issue of, there was a question about anti-LGBT legislation. What was the question again? I wrote anti-LGBT, but...
So I was making a follow-up to what you said, that it was passed.
Yeah.
So you don't see why it should be brought back to be considered. And I'm asking that we know that when a bill is passed and it is not assented to, it dies with the life of a certain parliament. In this case, the last parliament passed it, it wasn't passed. This is the 9th parliament. We've even seen more proponents thereafter. How do you explain what you meant by you don't see why it is brought back because it was passed? What do you mean by it was passed, so it should be considered? And again, Leader, you supervise the business committee, so how did it feature on the order paper if you claim you were not aware?
Yeah, I did. I was at business committee. You were at business committee. Was it discussed? No, it wasn't discussed. Apparently, it's our first business committee meeting. And we even met before Parliament commenced sitting. We met the day before. And then the order paper was prepared the following morning. And there was no business before us to be scheduled, to tell you the truth. So that one, I can be honest and open with you. It wasn't discussed. My witnesses are here. You were at business committee meeting? No. He was not there. Okay, but it wasn't discussed. Now, the Constitution says that if a bill is not passed, and then the life of the parliament expires, then it lapses. But this one was passed. Are you getting the situation? Is that okay? We have passed it. It's left with the assent. And if you remember, there was a big constitutional issue about what happened if the timelines for assent have passed and then the president's timeline for sending it back to parliament. He also doesn't comply with those timelines. And then there was an issue about the fact that there was a pending litigation and then some injunctive reliefs had been sought in relation to the matter. And it was all so confused in terms of the litigation and etc. So yes, I take it that we passed it. And if you don't resolve the question of what is the legal effect of our having passed it, it will be difficult to take it again on the floor of the House. Now, the other question has to do with, pardon? Prosecution, public prosecution. Yeah, prior to actual prosecution. Well, I really don't think there's a problem with that. In most jurisdictions, when investigators engage in investigations of crimes, they brief the public where they have reached, how far they have gone. Sometimes they even give the evidence they have. Sometimes they keep it as a surprise if giving it out will compromise further evidence that is going to be gathered, or even compromise their case in court. So I don't think that there is an issue. The good thing is that we live in a free environment where if the prosecutors go public and say, we have this evidence, you have journalists that you can go to and also go public and confirm that they don't have it. Are you getting the situation? So it's a free environment. And those are the guarantees of freedoms that we have. Okay. Okay. Maybe I didn't understand.
Why people they criminalize the issue before putting it before the court? I think that was the question. Thank you.
When you say they have criminalized the issue, if the issue is a crime, it's a crime. They say you have committed a crime. And because you have committed a crime, they have investigated, like, let's take an example. What happened at National Service Secretariat? Is that not it? As a typical example. Now, there's an audit report. When an audit report reveals crime, there's a suspected crime. There's a suspected crime, and then now prosecutors are going to be invited. The prosecutors are usually concerned about evidence of the crime, because when you go to court, you have to prove the crime. You have to prove it. You can say, oh, there's been crime, but how do you prove it? Becomes another challenge. So prosecutors have to, investigators have to establish the evidence of the crimes. So you normally, conduct your investigation. It's up to you to decide as a prosecutor whether you want to put your evidence out there or not. No law actually stops you. No law stops you before you go to court to actually assemble your evidence and then put it out there that, look, I've got this evidence. This is it. Sign check. This is it. Withdrawal of the money. This is it. Public money entry into your accounts. This is it. Company that you incorporated that, you are a shareholder or you have an interest. This is it. Transfer from government accounts into your account. Free and fair presentation and comments. If it is not true that it is your company, you come and say, this is it, it is not my company, this is it, there was no transfer, this is it, my name is not there, this is it, I didn't take it. Is that not it? And Ghanaians will be watching and listening to both you government that say that you have the evidence and then the accused person who says that he doesn't have the evidence. I think that our jurisprudence may need to develop to a point where if you really don't have the evidence and you malign me and I go to court, sue you for damages, the court should protect me by handing very hefty, compensation to deter future prosecutors from presenting, maligning, things when they don't really have a case. That's the way to develop the jurisprudence. Because, like I said from the beginning, there is a tension between people's rights and the fact that law enforcement will have to also enforce the law if they suspect that crimes have been committed. Then, that's it? All right, we're done? Legal education. Yes, so I think yes, the bill is ready. The bill is ready. The whole idea is to open it up and then introduce the kind of system we have in the US where you do your education wherever you want to do it, and then you write a bar exam, and so it is a mechanism for making sure that there is greater access to legal education. But I think he has the draft bill. I've seen the draft bill from the Attorney General's office, and I believe that, when he's ready, he will present it to the House. The channel, the TV channel, yeah, basically, if you know the history of that TV channel, it was introduced during COVID because teachers couldn't go to school, children couldn't go to school, so government got that channel in order to enable teachers to reach students. COVID is over, everybody is going to school, children are in school, nobody is watching the channel, GTV is not using the channel, and Parliament says, give it to us, instead of we taking state resources to go and procure another channel, which is waste of state resources. This one is lying there, you are not using it, give it to us. What crime have we committed? Huh? Which? Well, you talk about facilities. There are so many facilities that government has. But because of our commitment to fiscal discipline, is that okay? Those monies are not free. They are loans. So when you take it and disburse it, you are adding to your debt stock. Do you get it? So not just Korean, even the World Bank has given us facilities we are not using. Even this parliament approved them all right, but the government says no. When we withdraw from it, we are adding to the debt of government. And we are committed to fiscal discipline. We don't want to spend beyond our means. So unless we have money that we are sure we can pay that debt, we're not going to touch that debt. Are you getting the situation? So it's not just the Korean one. There are so many facilities that have been approved in this house, including World Bank and every other, many countries, China, European countries. They've all given us facilities that this house approved, but this government says, no, we won't touch it because we don't want to add to the debt stock.
Thank you. We thank leadership and our friends from the Inky fraternity for this engagement. Usman Alasan will close us with a prayer.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
Amen. Thank you.